Hi, I'm Sean Nolan from Sean Nolan the Heartmakers, and you're listening to Rhino Radio.
So again, through the magic of the internet, I am joined by Sean Nolan of Sean Nolan and the Heartmakers, all the way from Brooklyn.
Yep.
How are you doing today, Sean?
I'm doing all right. Yeah, it's every day is sort of the same. They're all blurring together at this point. So
Okay, I'm guessing that the US is still heavy in lockdown or still adjusting to that.
yeah, a lot of it's I don't have a job still. It's been like 5 months. Restaurants are still, you can't dine inside. It's just outdoor stuff. So it's been interesting.
And if I'm mistaken, you had a very interesting year altogether. The Machinery of Joy dropped in May. I'm guessing
Hmm.
touring was affected completely by that. You had a few
Yeah.
singles, videos, but if I'm also correct, even though we're still kind of celebrating the Machinery of Joy that was released just a couple of months ago, there's also talk about a new EP coming out. So it's been a really interesting year, even though affected by Corona. So tell me how it was for you.
Yeah. I mean, the craziest thing about it is like, we had a record release party planned and we had some shows booked, all this stuff. Everything got canceled, obviously. Everything got put on hold. Shows were rescheduled a few times. And then unfortunately, our drummer and his girlfriend moved to LA, so they moved across the country. So we essentially don't have a drummer now. And at this point, it's been 5 months since the rest of us had been in the same room together. So like obviously we haven't been rehearsing or planning anything. Everything's just kind of on hold, which is it's tough because it's depressing. We were working so hard for so long and so excited, and then everything just got halted. It was just like hitting the brakes, sort of, which is it's been challenging to say the least.
So, how are you able to keep positive with all the challenges around you, whether it's personal or professional?
Yeah, I mean it's definitely not easy. I speak with a therapist once a week, which helps. I got a puppy who's currently biting my hand
Oh, we need to see
behind
it.
me. Come here, come here.
Oh,
She's a
you have
little,
to stay positive with this one around.
yeah. She keeps me very busy. Um, but yeah, and then I've started other projects too. Like at the beginning of this pandemic, I wrote a few songs. So I on my end, I have material ready. Like we did. Unfortunately, we were also scheduled to go back into the recording studio. I think in March, and then that got pushed back, and now that's been essentially canceled until down the road. Like we need to find another drummer. Um, but we had started recording; it was going really well. We were really excited about it, and then it all just got stopped. So um, I wrote a few songs at the beginning. I started I started painting some pictures and started working on a novel, just like all these other creative outlets, just to kind of help, maintain some. Because otherwise, you stay cooped up in the same spot for months, you lose your mind a little bit. So, I mean, it's also like reading a lot of books, playing video games, whatever I can do, really. But how about you? I'm sure, like, how's it going over there where you are? Are you guys all locked down and
It kind of goes back and forth. We're not sure if we're improving or just taking more steps backwards. But yeah, trying to stay
right?
positive and doing a lot of those things that you've mentioned as well. And it kind of
Yeah.
leads me to my next question. How much of your weekend have you spent playing Tony Hawk?
Most of it. I I've played. I was up till like I forgot how challenging the game was. because I played it when it came out, like at my best friend's house. Growing up, I would always go over there. We'd play Tony Hawk till like, all night long. And I forgot, and so I started playing it. I was like, oh my God, this thing is like trying to get the high score. I couldn't do it. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like I couldn't. I was so angry, and I was up till 4 o'clock in the morning. I was up till 4 o'clock in the morning trying to like collect buckets of popcorn in the downtown area, and like trying to do like the gap goals or whatever the challenge is. And I mean, it's great. It's so cool that they did that. Like, it's super exciting to like hear some of those songs again and like hear some new songs, and it's a lot of fun. It's very cool, but definitely played too much of it. But
Yeah, I gotta ask you something a bit more serious. You're based just outside of New York City, Brooklyn,
right.
which to us in the UK, New York kind of sounds like the core of where music comes from compared to LA as well. But
Right.
do you feel like where the band comes from, do you feel like it actually affects the success of the band? There's the same kind of talk in the UK with London. So if you're not in London, either started there or moved closer to it, then you might not kind of explode. Do you feel the same thing
Right.
happens in the US with New York and LA, or is it just a myth and it's just an excuse for whoever's not living close to it?
It's interesting because it's I feel like I also thought those things before moving here. I've been in Brooklyn for 10 years now. And I came from Connecticut, which is pretty close. But you always think that like, oh, New York or LA, or sometimes you think like Nashville. If you're playing something like closer to Americana or country music or something, you think of Nashville. But from what I understand, and from what I've learned over the course of the last like 5 or so years of doing this project, this band, is that New York is a difficult city to be in if you are a musician based here. It's a good place to pass through. It's a good place to play shows at. But the truth is, like, most people, like, it's like, we would play shows with like 4 or 5 other bands. Like, we're all unknown bands all doing this stuff. And like, it's difficult to get people to come out. It's always difficult to get people to go to shows. People go see like bands that they know or their favorite bands. They go see bigger shows. But as far as the local music scene in Brooklyn and New York, it's challenging. Ultimately, the goal would be to get on a bill with another band that could draw. But the more people I speak to about booking shows and playing shows in Brooklyn, like that's the one thing that they say is like it's kind of a place that you travel to and you perform at, you get a lot of buzz, whatever, but you can't play like 4 or 5 nights a week or 4 or 5 nights a month in New York City if you're a local band, because like it's all your friends and family that come out and other bands, and it's like they're going to go to 1 or 2 of those shows. They're not going to go to every one of them. Because when we started, we would play like 2 nights in a row at some venue and then book like another night. Like we'd play like 2 or 3 nights a week sometimes, and then get frustrated because like people we knew and people we invited would come out to like the first one, or they'd come out to the second one, but no one would come out to both. And it's like, I don't know, the band H2O, that's like a New York hardcore band. I remember, like, I've always been a big fan of theirs, and I remember like a few years ago they played some small venue, and they did like a weird residency where they played like 4 nights in a row. And I remember being shocked because like by the end there were tons of tickets left, and it was like the first night or the second night would sell out, and then all of a sudden, and it's kind of like I don't know. You got to, in order to draw, you got to do something like way different each time. It doesn't matter who you are. Anyway, like I hope that doesn't sound too rambling. It's hard to define. Like New York and Brooklyn with playing shows is weird. It's weird because like there are some great venues that we played, but it's also like it's hard to get people to care. There's so much going on. It's so saturated that it's like it's more difficult. Whereas if you start out in like a suburb, and I'm sure it's similar over there too, you can become like hometown heroes. and you become like a hometown hero. And then when you go to the bigger city, you then already have some buzz or a following. But if you start out in the big city, you're competing with like the giants that are established. Like I said, unless you're doing something like really wild or especially unique, like it's difficult to get people to pay attention. Like, oh, another band, you know. So it's tricky.
You're saying get a tiger.
Yeah, get a tiger, bring a tiger on stage, teach it how to play the drums. that's the key to it, I think.
Okay. Speaking of things that you can do with your band and the names of the albums, there are a lot of tributes around that between the Tom Petty, Heartmakers, Heartbreakers, and the albums
Yeah,
are named after Ray Bradbury's releases. Um, do you
right.
believe that I mean, there's so many tributes and so many reboots recently with Aladdin and all the kind of the old stuff from when we were kids
Yeah.
coming back. Do you think we need more of it or we need to change it? Where's your kind of perception of reboots, classics, tributes, new stuff? What do you want to see as a fan?
Um, I as a fan want new stuff. I think like, but that being said, I think drawing upon older things or being influenced or inspired by them, I think is very cool. Because like I love hearing sounds that harken back to something else, but it's kind of reimagined or twisted or tweaked in a way where it's then new. Because ultimately, I mean, there's nothing new. There's really no such thing as new. Everything kind of draws from each other. It's very, very rare that you hear something where you're like, oh my God, I've heard nothing like this before. Like, this is incredible. It does happen. I mean, there's that, I think he's Canadian, that country singer Orville Peck. Um, Super interesting, like unique sound, but it's also, he sounds like Roy Orbison and a little bit of Johnny Cash, and he sounds like those people. So it's just, he just kind of slapped a fresh coat of paint on these older sounds, and I think it's not too different than anything else that's happening. Like even in the world of punk music and stuff, like I mean, when's the last time anybody heard a punk band where it was like, oh my God, this doesn't sound like anything else? It's like, no, it all sounds like itself. You know, it's like the band the Menzingers. Like I love the Menzingers. But you turn it on and you can name like 5 bands that they draw their sound from. You know, you've got like the Replacements and then Hot Water Music and all these other bands were like, yeah, that's what it is. You know, they've come at it from their own approach, and their songwriting really shines, and that's what makes them special, is they've got really great songs. But as far as the sound goes, there's nothing new about it really. But I think that's the key, is to, instead of just, because there are bands that definitely not just bands but any art scene, there are people that just copy one another, and like maybe they do it really well or maybe they do it better than the people that came before them, like in a technical aspect. But the only way it's really special is if they look at it, they love it, they do a thing, but they kind of like reimagine it in their own way, and it's really interesting at that point. Or they like, you know, smash a couple different genres together, and then it's cool. Like that, I mean, I do find that more interesting, which like with the Machineries of Joy, like one criticism that we would get is that you know, it's a short record, obviously, and genre-wise, it kind of jumps around a bit, and but that's what I find exciting. So you know, I don't really want to do the same thing over and over and over again. Um, anyway, yeah,
So can I kind of confront you what you said about looking for the new stuff? Is your favorite
sure.
TV show still Cheers?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I I um I have a weird relationship with television. And I think it's frustrating for most of my friends because, like, and my brother, they'll be like, "Oh, you gotta check out the such and such show," and I'll be like, "Yeah, maybe." And in my head, I know I'm not gonna ever turn it on, and it's not because it's bad. I enjoy television, but in smaller doses than I'm more of a but before all this happened, I would go to the movies all the time. So I'm a big fan of going to the movies. But binge watching stuff I'll do on occasion, but I'm more prone to you know, reading a book or like playing video games or something. It's kind of like, I I don't know if this is I don't know. It's like if somebody says to me like, "Oh, I wish you were here," like, I'm binge watching such and such a show, and they text me while I'm on my couch with my book in my hand, like, I don't want to be there with you. I don't want to do that at all. I want to sit on my couch and read my book with my small dog. Like, so, I mean, as far as my favorite show, like Cheers, the reason I love Cheers is like it's so simple and it's a very human show. Like the characters are so flawed and there are a lot of issues going on in it that I think are still relevant today where it's upsetting on a number of levels, but it's very human. It's easily digestible. You can watch them, like they're 20, 30-minute episodes and there's like, I don't know, 10 or 11 seasons or something up there. So it's like you can just put it on and they're almost like your friends, sort of. I mean, that's probably why people, love Friends, or, I mean, I also love Seinfeld. So just like a comfort
Well, your
thing.
description almost matches the description of the Kardashians. So I'm guessing our next interview, we're going to talk about that.
Yes,
Yes,
that's fair.
okay. I want to confront you with a rumor that started around the time that lockdown started in the US. Obviously, we said the Machinery of Joy was released just a couple of months ago, but there were already discussions, as you already said, about a new album. There was even already a name, an EP. You said that everything got pushed a little bit, but your fans, knowing you a little bit, knowing about your love for outside food, they assumed there was a rumor that the new material is going to have a Chopsticks Solo. Is that something that you
Oh,
acquired lockdown?
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Chopsticks across the board. 100%.
So is it in the lyrics? Is
Little
it
like hand symbols, whatever those are called.
the castañetas?
Yeah, exactly that.
Okay, so now we have to wait for. Was it supposed to be called Dandelion Wine? Is it still in the making?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was gonna be called Dandelion Wine. We're still talking a lot about it, so it's still. We have 3 tracks already that have been, the first day of recording has done them, so we just need to go back and add some extra voices, and they need to be mixed and mastered and things. But we're gonna add. Obviously, we're looking at doing like an LP, so probably like between 9 and 11 tracks at least. And it's kind of like I have my portion written, um, and we just have to get together and start working on the rest of the songs. And then I think most likely what we'll end up having to do is maybe have a couple different drummers throughout the record, um, which is interesting when you think about like a band. You think of a core group of people, and then when you think about like someone's solo record, they could have like a rotating, you know, uh, personnel or something like that. And I think it's just a strange circumstance, if we could have our drummer fly back and do all of it and have rehearsals 100%, that's what we'll do. If we can't, though, it's not going to stop the record. So if it means like, we have like a couple people play, we have a couple people play. It's like the Dandelion Wine is, again, the title comes from a Ray Bradbury novel. Um, and it's also kind of, makes me think of Wildflowers by Tom Petty. So it's kind of, you know, the tone of it, we're kind of looking for that, but it's still some like punk core values and roots in it, but more of like some influence from, say, bands like the Smiths, where the guitars I want to be more like of a jangly sound, like still really fast percussive sound, but maybe brighter sounding. I mean, the songs themselves are pretty dark. They're just like, you know, a lot of them were written during a breakup that I was going through. So they're not the most positive thing. So I figure if you contrast like the heavier lyrics with like a brighter sound, you get more of an all-around package that's kind of like, it gives you a good feeling, like a hopeful, sad, like a melancholy kind of a sound, which is that's what I envision. So hopefully we can get back to working on that sooner than later. But we'll see.
Well, safety first, but we'll be looking for that. We'll follow your pages and get updated with all the news. And once it's there, we'll definitely share it with our listeners. One last question before we say goodbye. Corona aside, but from your experience, either as a musician or as a fan, is there something specific that you would like, again, for fans, musicians, suits around us, to do to make the scene safer for musicians and fans? Or maybe we need to do something different, stop doing something that we're doing, but give us something that needs to change right now. Again, Corona aside, obviously, we need to make it safer, but before and after, how do we make more people feel welcome to our lovely rock scene?
The biggest, I mean, aside from like the safety issues with health with the coronavirus, like one of the biggest things that I noticed, and I don't know if it's exactly, I'm certain it's not the same everywhere, but I know in Brooklyn and in New York, a lot of promoters and you know, booking agents throughout the city, especially in venues, the promoters, they'll book you. They'll have like nights of the week where, you know, it doesn't really matter, not as crucial, and they'll just kind of throw a bunch of people in a room and be like, it's up to you to draw this many people. Or like you have to. There's just a lot of pressure to do it on your own. Whereas like these venues usually have a large following on social media. But to get these people to actually promote and to support the smaller bands is like pulling teeth. You know, it's like it's easy for a promoter to push a show when it's like a big band that can draw, because they don't have to do very much. But it's like, I would love to see venues actually support and push artists that they enjoyed and encourage them. That would be really exciting. As if I think there's a lot of division in local music scenes where it's like you've got bands doing their thing, you got venues doing their thing, you've got everybody is kind of separate, but they need each other. It's kind of like at a job when you have like a disconnect between the management and the employees, which like it functions, but it's not great. The management needs to connect with the employees and realize that they're part of the same organism and they need to help one another. And I don't often see that in the local music scene. I see there's like a disconnect and it's very cold. It's not encouraging. It's not very supportive. So I think like regardless of anything that I ever do, it would just be nice to see like young people encouraged and just to overall create more of a positive environment. Because, you know, it's not easy. It's not easy putting yourself out there and creating. So I think more support across the board from everybody would be nice to see.
Sean, Nolan, thank you very much for sharing that and everything before that. It's been great talking to you. Is there anything else you want to add to fans and listeners before we say goodbye?
Just keep on keeping on and wear a mask.
Okay, Sean Nolan, the Heartmakers, as we said, the Machineries of Joy is out now, and we cannot wait until there's more. You said that you're working on something, but once it's safe, we're going to get some more. So thank you very much for sharing your time with us.
Thank you. It's been great.